Well, the worst part of LTA North Split 3, LCS Summer Split, is finally over. I can safely say this has been some of the worst 3 weeks of League of Legends in NA that I think I've had to watch in a long time. Not from the gameplay point of view, but just from like a product, like what the hell is going on type thing. So it only feels right to bring back a video segment that I've enjoyed doing, but I kind of did away for a little bit because the takes were pretty much the same. Hotline League was around it. It was like, maybe it's not the right time. But with the current state of things, it feels only appropriate to bring back. I don't want to overreact, but, and I got a lot of comments, 22 of them to be specific. I've narrowed them down to like 7 different topics in particular. I'm going to try and show as many on screen as I can in terms of your tweets. But thank you to everybody that used the hashtag and follows me on Twitter for these videos in the future. Again, Twitter's always going to be the best place for this thing. So without further ado, I can't start with anyone but this one. I'm going to read Stacy, aka APA's mom's tweet on this. But as you can see, she was not alone. And I'm right with her on this format is absolute crap. And this is how one team is going to be selected for Worlds before we finalize the other spots. Like, what the actual fuck? Seriously, please do better next year. There are so many problems with the format as is. The ones that were just highlighted in the last 12 hours alone was the fact that C9 is now the #1 seed, pick Shopify, which ultimately, like, the difference between C9 and FlyQuest is kind of irrelevant. They're probably going to both win their first series 3-0 and then face each other. But it's how we got here that they can become the first seed by going undefeated and not dropping a game, but overtaking FlyQuest, who are not only the champions from Split 2, had not dropped a game, and your basis for this was strength of schedule and time, or like game time itself. And strength of schedule was entirely out of both C9 and FlyQuest hands, especially since FlyQuest was the #1 seed. They're naturally going to play weaker opponents, and because neither one of them get the pick, like, how is that fair to judge it on at a minimum? Also, on the losers bracket side, how in the world does DSG win a single best of 3 series against arguably worse teams than every other team that is in the bottom 4, and they get 5th pick and they get to pick Dignitas? It's created a banger matchup in Lion versus 100 Thieves, but that matchup shouldn't have happened just yet. This is god-awful seeding going into this bracket that makes absolutely zero sense. From an entertainment value point of view, like, separate from how this worked out, nobody knew what the fuck was going on this entire 3 weeks. Myself and Dom, for the first like 45 minutes, both of the broadcast and then like into the first game, had zero clue how C9 even stood a chance of like going about this. Like, it made no sense. TL was locked in 4th seed coming into today, and nobody talked about it. Broadcast didn't mention it. The LTA fandom site didn't even highlight blue that they were locked, despite like us. Like, I called it out yesterday. It's like, hey, they're locked. I also said the FlyQuest was locked, but that wasn't true. And just overall, it was 3 weeks for the most part of stomps, and just not the series that we want to see when we are this far into the year. The decision to go with this, like, I understand where they were trying to come from, and like the picks are spicy, but they're not when it's completely telegraphed. And you get players up there that just do not want to talk, do not want to, like, they do banter a little bit, but it doesn't feel natural. It feels forced. And when something feels that forced, that's when it becomes a problem. That's whenever it becomes disinteresting, and people just, they aren't going to watch it. They're going to tune out, which a lot of people did. I'll save like the viewership for a later point in this, but just the format was terrible. And I'm going to give my specific suggestion on how to fix this in a later point. But I just want this to be known that, yes, I stand with everybody on the issue that this format is awful. It should not return. The only thing that should be kept is the banners themselves. I like that. That's cool. But everything else about this format and how it played out is just emblematic of where we're at as a region, and it just sucks. Which, speaking of, notorious shit poster Popsley said, I don't want to overreact, but North America has no good team internationally, At this level, if we win one series versus EU or CFO, it will be an overperformance. The problem is we're 3 weeks into this split and we've seen like no competition between the top two teams that are realistically the two that we will probably be sending to the international stage in both C9 and FlyQuest. C9 has been tested more than I think people were expecting them to be at this point. Lion put up a pretty good fight despite getting 2-0'd against FlyQuest as well. So like I'm curious to see how this goes as the tournament progresses, but I think the problem is like FlyQuest is not getting good competition right now in this region. Like 100 Thieves fell off pretty hard. Team Liquid is faltering. Like it's the classic summer thing where some teams struggle. And for FlyQuest, yes, they're coming off of their kind of MSI hangover where they're not looking fantastic by any means, but I still think they will be fine come the international stage. Like I know people are worried about like us losing to Europe. I still think we're at a better level than EU is personally. Like I've been watching the LAC and I don't have that much faith in them overall. Like they've looked solid, but I think like we still will be better, especially as you get time off, us to boot camp, everything else. I think it is an overreaction on this front to say that like we don't have any good teams. FlyQuest have proven themselves at the international events that they've gone to so far that they can push Eastern teams to best of 5 series. And when we get into the Swiss stage, they're not even going to be playing against, well, I mean, they could be, but like in theory, you're not playing against Genji or T1. You're facing against Hama Life and whoever the 4 seed is going to be out of the LCK and the 3 seed from China, which China's got their own issues going on right now. Their top teams with might not even be like, I'm waiting to see what the punishment looks like for Shanks right now. So I think that is definitely an overreaction. Like I think FlyQuest actually like stands a good chance and should actually probably be favored in certain situations to possibly beat the lower seeds from the East and especially from Europe. Like we have proved ourselves against them, even though, yes, I know first stand we faltered against K-Corp, but overall, yeah, I think I'm comfortable with where we're at, even if our domestic product's not training them. There's enough time between where the end of our LCS summer split will be and Worlds to get them prepped and ready. And they know that's coming. They'll be able to hit the ground running. So I would just say don't take their current form so long as like they still look better than everybody else as an indication that we're going to be any more or less ready for Europe and Korea when we go to Worlds. Like it's just going to be a whoever survives boot camp the best. Catman came in swinging at Dignitas, saying that I don't want to overreact, but Dignitas is the new Immortals. And if the org is to ever improve, they need to get rid of everyone in upper management and potentially need a rebrand so they can be searchable. I've been pitching the rebrand to Dignitas for like three years now, give or take. Like every time that I've met somebody or talked to somebody within the Dignitas org, I've been like, hey, you know you've got to change your name, right? And they're like, yeah, but we got history. It's like, no, you need to change your name. Like, I'm sorry, it just ain't gonna work. Your history means jack all. Especially like in the league program, you could just rebrand to something else. Like I'm sorry, but you don't have that big of a following. There's not that many Dignitas fans to the point where like you're losing that much value. If you don't want to change Fortnite and like other programs, fine. Like I get it. But your league pillar, come on. There's so many other things that you could do here. Like you really could to make it at least searchable. In terms of how this organization is being handled, yeah, I mean, they are the new Immortals of the league. They are the new punching bag of this league. And so long as the people that are running the organization that have been there for the last 3 years are still there, yeah, I expect pure and utter incompetence and a shitty product on the Rift. Like that's just what you kind of get at this point. They'll bring in newer talent. They'll get rid of newer talent. That newer talent will go elsewhere and look better. And Dignitas is just sitting here looking like, yeah, well, whatever could have happened. And it's been like, well, it's a repeated pattern now, isn't it? Now, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to say that Dignitas should leave the league. Personally, I don't actually agree with that part because I think their content, especially since Sylvix is running it and I've checked out their channel, assuming you know to type in Dignitas League or Dignitas LCS or anything else like that after it to make sure that you don't get put on the hotline. Their stuff's actually decent. So like they're doing a lot more than Immortals did on that front, but they're like the org itself is not giving anything for the content team to really work with on that front. It's like, oh, there's no storyline building. You're not like the video with Surdy coming out first, which I get Sylvix took ownership for after the fact. It's like you put out a video on your own channel shitting on your own brand. I respect it. I do. That takes balls, but is it the right move? Probably not. Probably should have went on Surdy's channel, especially since now that video's up and now Surdy's on a team that's going to go farther than you in playoffs this year. That's hilarious. So yes, Dignitas is the new IMT, but I actually don't want them going anywhere. I want them to stay around, and I would just like them to get new management entirely, like clean house in terms of the entire like actual league structure side, and then go from there. I don't know what else you say with Dig. Back to the NA side, Jay Hammy says, is Riot even trying to make the league exciting again? It honestly feels like they're just using the worst possible ideas to ruin the league and bleed out what viewership they have left so they can just pack it up and kill off NA as a region. Look, the viewership numbers won't be updated for today, given that ES Charts is typically like a few days behind on this, but viewership is down pretty substantially, and this is going to be the conversation that I do want to have about it that I alluded to last week. We are now below weekday numbers, which goes to show that general interest in this region, at least in the domestic product, is dying. Like, it's slowly fading away. That does not mean that interest in North America is fading, as seen by people showing up to MSI. Sheep Esports talked about how searches in North America are still the most of their site, like, or the most visited country from their site is the United States of America, like North America in general. But they're looking for Los Ratones, and they're looking for the LCK, and they're looking for these other leagues that they find entertaining. What we are failing to do as a region is to put out a competitive product, which is fine. We're not going to be the LCK, that's fine. But we're not then actually making it something that people want to watch. Like, there's no storylines that people want to follow. There are no rivalries. There are no players that people find really all that interesting that can carry viewership like that. Otherwise, it would stop the bleeding. The decisions from Riot in terms of the format and the marketing of this league are fucking atrocious. The Twitter alone, like LTA North Twitter, compare it to the South. Okay, the South tweeted out 3 days ago the exact conditions on how people qualify for the next stage. They're constantly tweeting out every day the bracket, engagement, like just constant things. And the North, I'm sitting here pleading for us to get information. When you look at the broadcast today, one of the most important parts of what should have been the central focus of the broadcast today should have been a countdown timer. Because if you didn't know, the caveat for C9 being able to win or being able to go into like the number one seed going into playoffs was they either needed, I think it was like a DSG 2-0, but if Dignitas, or the DSG win, if Dignitas won their series, it came down to a time differential between them and FlyQuest. There should have been a WWE Royal Rumble style countdown sitting in the top right-hand corner of that broadcast the entire time that C9 was playing, counting down, because you know what? It came in barely a minute's difference. Barely a minute after that second game. Why was that not a hype thing? Why should we not have been like freaking out about that clock? Like, okay, you got to win this fight and end this game, or FlyQuest is getting the number one seed. Like, that should have been a central focus of it. That should have been talked about in the pregame. Like, I don't think we understand the things that are entertaining for the public as a whole. And that is not just on like that's honestly on everybody that's involved with the broadcast, that we're just not understanding what drives an interesting product. Now, people on the broadcast might be hampered by decisions being made above them. Absolutely. They might be hamstringed to a certain extent. But when you're missing easy marks like this in the format that you all are in control of, then I just sit here and it's like, what are we doing? This is such an obvious one. Like, we shouldn't be confused about, like, not to get back into the format, but we shouldn't be confused about what's going on. You should be informing, but also assuming that your audience is not fucking dumb and can handle this information, because we aren't dumb. The reason why people respect Cadril and why the reason why people love his co-streams and broadcasts, same thing with Dom, is that they do go more in depth. And it's not just like there's a level of depth and detail that the broadcast always goes into, because by all means, they're putting on a show. There's a limited amount of time. But I feel like it's nowhere near as deep as what the co-streamers do by nature of them having more time, but just the respect that they give their audience. They may think that their audience are idiots at times. I'm sure Cadril thinks that some of his rats are dumb as hell, and Dom might think that, the people watching him might be stupid at times, but they don't sugarcoat their analysis under the assumption that they are. They go really deep, and I don't feel like we hit that same level of depth or at least that same level of entertaining depth that the co-streamers are able to hit. And I don't know how I don't know how to solve that. Other than, like I've said continuously, fork over the money, fork over the resources and the time, and get the people on the broadcast that a lot of people want to see, which should be Dom, which should be LS, assuming he can, and let them drive the story beats, because they are more in touch with the community and what the community wants than most other people are in this situation. But at a minimum, do I think Riot's trying to kill North America? Not intentionally, but I think that they're very, very stubborn. Speaking from one of the most stubborn people in the world here, myself, I recognize it when I see it. They're stubborn as hell in their ideas that they think are going to work, but they have no humility to be able to admit when they're wrong and pivot and course correct before it's too late. Mage of Light said, I don't want to overreact, but Impact should have been replaced between spring and summer. And this is going to be controversial, but I heavily agree. I know a lot of people were also focused on APA as well, and obviously he's not playing at his peak, but I will say Impact, like the difference between him faltering in the past and now is that in the past, it always felt like there was like something redeeming, whether it was team fights, whether it was laning, there was always like something that you could kind of buy onto. I'm not seeing any of that right now. And he costs them games consistently. And it's like, if I'm Team Liquid and I'm looking at this right now, I'll be honest with you, I think they're one top laner away from being able to make worlds. I really do. Like, I think Yuji's growing enough that it's like, if you just have somebody that's not losing lane and not out of position this much, they'd be fine. The problem is, what do you do? Like, you're not going to make a change right now, obviously. I mean, I'm sure if they could try and bring in like somebody as a 6-man to try it out, maybe, but then you also potentially like snowball the roster down. But like in their current form, they stand no chance. Like, we only get to send 2 teams, unfortunately. And even though they're able to get leads against teams like Cloud9 today, they are not able to close it out right now. And their current roster is just not going to change in the short amount of time that it needs to be able to cross that line, at least in my opinion, unless Spawn comes in and like really changes things up going into playoffs. I think they're in trouble. So if I'm Steve, I'm looking at it as like, maybe you pull the trigger, because I think Impact's gone after the split. Like, I think Impact is done on Team Liquid, whether he retires or goes elsewhere. I think Team Liquid needs to pull the trigger now and like looking at their next replacement for him, whether that's, you know, picking up Surdy whenever Zamudo comes in for Lion. But like, dude, if they had a trigger to pull now, I'd say try it. I mean, what do you have to lose? You have double elimination. Why not? Because right now you know exactly where your ceiling's at, and you are not going to get past that. I don't think this is an overreaction at all. Cedric said, I don't want to overreact, but I think 3 splits is too many, especially if it's forced weird. Short splits with weird short playoffs, go back to 2 normal regular length season splits. That, unfortunately, I don't think is going to happen at all, purely because we do have 3 international events now, and you need to cater around that system. But the thing I will say, and I was a big proponent of this back in 2021 when we had like the record that carried over all the way through, I have no issue with this just becoming a season-long thing. If you want to, like, honestly, if I could format it in the way that I would want to, this is just me, what I would do is the beginning of the year, I would have a full tournament between all the teams that are eligible in NACL and LCS, like, and just understand that like the NACL team can't go to first stand. However, just have a full double elimination bracket. Like, start with some best of 3s. Later on, you get into best of 5s, and make it like an LCK or like a Demacia Cup or whatever the hell that was, and just have that tournament. I think that's a good way to start, so it doesn't fully count, and it feels like a good way to kick off the year and feels a little bit fresh. Then when you get into like spring split officially, then heading into summer, I think what you do from there is you just do as many round robins as you need to, and you stop halfway for MSI. Have a playoff bracket where the top, you know, you could take everybody for that one. Honestly, I have no problem with that. We only have 8 teams. So like 8 teams in the current format that we have it now, do a playoff system that kicks out 2 teams to go to MSI and Esports World Cup from there, fine. Then you continue the split afterwards. If you want to do the LCK style grouping of like top 4, bottom 4, personally, I don't think we have enough teams to do that. I think you need 10 to make that system work. But just continue the split from there. Maybe rig it so that the top teams play each other a little bit more often in summer so that they can tune up and prep for Worlds, and the bottom teams can like get themselves ready for that matchup against the top team. But I like the idea of just having one champion. Like the MSI qualifier be what it is. It's like a midseason tournament, but it's not LCS finals. It's not LCS championship. It does not count towards that. That is only at the end of the year. That way, it feels like one continuous thing, even though you have 3 breaks in between, more similar to golf, which even though you have like the 4 majors, it feels like there's many seasons in between, which gives it a very fresh feel. That I like. I hate what we're doing now. I hate how inconsistent the different formats are. They're tragically bad and people just get confused. Make it simple. Allow the product itself to flourish as the entertaining thing. If the product itself is not good enough that you have to do all these bells and whistles, you're fucked from the beginning. It's just on players and broadcast and creators to make this entertaining. Like, you can't do much more with it than there. Simplify and go from there. That's it. Like that's my recommendation. I agree. 3 splits feels like too many, but I don't think it's actually 3 splits. I think it's how we're handling our preparation going into the 3 international events, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, put it down in the comments. I'll explain a little bit more. Rin came in with the hot take saying, I don't want to overreact, but Shopify sweep, baby. C9 is a free W for the Rebels. Look, I'm going to be wearing a Shopify Rebellion jersey on Saturday when we watch this series out at Brookland. If you want to come out and watch, we'll be hosting a watch party out there. It should be a good time. Hope to see you all there. But I'll be honest with you, it's going to require a lot. You need Fudge to be able to nullify Thanatos, which I'm not confident is fully going to happen. And then Palafox needs to step up massively against Loki, who has been continuously looking better. Contracts we've seen get the better of Blaver, so like I know that can happen. And for the bot lane, B-Boy and Seos just need to have it on series, which sounds easy. And especially given that C9 did look like they were struggling a little bit against Team Liquid today. And I do think Shopify is a little bit better than Team Liquid at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a possibility. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. And I do think C9 is probably going to win that series 3-1. But I think it's going to be closer than people give it credit for. I think the top 4 in general, with the exception of, I think FlyQuest is a tier above. Honestly, I just think they're better than everybody else. But I think from C9, TL, and Shopify, I think they are closer than people give it credit for. But we'll see. It could be a 3-0 stomp, and then it's just C9 and FlyQuest. But I'm hoping somebody steps up and challenges them. I'd like to see a 3-horse race, if at all possible. So definitely an overreaction, but I respect it. And the final take. I don't want to shy away from controversy on this one. It was, I saw 2 different tweets on it, so I think it's worth addressing specifically. Tesler, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I don't want to overreact, but Markz might be the worst thing to ever happen to the LCS. We are now, year 2 into Markz being LCS commissioner, and somebody does have to take blame for all of the things that are happening right now in North America and the downturn here. In the same way that somebody had to take responsibility for that whenever the weekday change came. I raised alarm bells then. We made changes afterwards, which steadied the ship a little bit, but now we're right back down to sinking. And I don't know if Markz is specifically to blame. I do think that this more comes from people above him that forced the Americas merger, which would likely be Chris Greeley, which would likely be Carlos and Raul. I don't know specifics on who made what call, but I do think if we're like within the confines of what Markz likely could control, which was probably the formats, which probably was some of the decisions made on like how broadcast things are handled, or at least like how budget is distributed. I mean, I'm shooting in the dark. The format's like the main thing that I'm sitting here thinking like Markz probably has his direct thumb and fingerprint on, and to which I would say, yeah, it's an utter failure. The thing that I was worried about, similar to what Travis was worried about, is that Markz would go in and he wouldn't be able to get anything done and would just be a scapegoat for some really shitty decisions from Riot. And you do take responsibility as an individual for not being able to read the room and know that that's coming for yourself. So far, Markz's tenure, if you take away like the understanding of like the political or like our assumed understanding of the political structure of Riot and how things work and the red tape that exists, yeah, I would argue his like time, especially this year, has been one of the worst of any LCS commissioner ever. The damage that has been done to the product right now is downright horrendous. But I don't know if that's necessarily his fault. Like, we know that Mark has good ideas. We know that Mark is in theory good at entertaining and that he knows what delivers a good product because we've had years of him talking about it on Hotline League. But what we're getting right now is not good. But me personally, I don't know if I fully blame Markz for that. I more blame the people above him more than anything else. But if we don't see changes going into next year, and I know he can't say anything because it's like, oh, if he's being forced to do it, it is what it is. But I would expect him to resign, honestly. Like, from his own, like, he's not dumb. If he goes into next year and feels like he can't inflict any change and you just see this product declining, don't go down with the ship. Like, don't do what I did with 100 Thieves. Jump beforehand. And whether you can get a job elsewhere or do something, like, I don't find it, because like another bad year like this is going to tarnish Markz's reputation forever. And I don't want to see that happen, but there's no avoiding it at this point if you couldn't see the writing on the wall. Because one more bad year like this, and yes, North America actually is done. Riot might still keep it existing, but like as a product, it will be dead forever with no possibility of coming back. We're barely hanging on by a thread right now. And I don't know if Markz has the power to make the right decisions to make sure that we can come back from this. But at a minimum, I've lost faith. I'm assuming most of the community has, based on the public sentiment. So where do we go from here? I mean, I put my suggestions out there for formats, for ideas, for like all this shit. Will it happen? Who knows? You just need to make a product that people actually enjoy. And as of right now, nobody's enjoying it. That's it. Thank you to everybody that put your takes out there for I Don't Want to Overreact. I don't know if I want to make this a weekly series just yet, just because I know takes can get kind of stale. I think there's bigger moments that definitely call for this, but there is also a need for conversation with the community, question and answer type stuff like this. I think it does better live more than it does in a video like this, but I just don't have time to do it live. But let me know your thoughts. I don't want to overreact. I thought about doing as like a live show, but maybe my perception is skewed. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong on that, but I also don't want to just straight up copy Hotline League. I don't know. Regardless, I appreciate all of you that have kept up with things both on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, whatever it might be. I appreciate you all more than you know. We're the fighting spirit that is slowly keeping North America alive, and hopefully one day it can regrow into something. I know it's frustrating right now. This whole video obviously was just letting out a lot of anger from both the community and myself. But if we all work together slowly and we can get around this corporate red tape that exists, maybe we can build NA into something great again. Oh God, I don't like that I said, oh Jesus Christ. I don't know, build it into something better, please. Like, oh God, cut the tape, cut the video.